Iran and Saudi Arabia have been in a number of proxy wars with one another and are constantly displaying their military might. Tensions are high, and even though neither of them has used their military on one another, this could lead to a massive war in the Middle East and possibly around the globe. Does this sound similar to anything? Like something kind of chilly? Maybe a Cold War? Yeah. A Cold War by definition is a state of political hostility between countries, characterized by threats, propaganda, and other measures short of open warfare. Saudi Arabia and Iran have been locked in a Cold War for decades. To understand this conflict, we must go back a few years. Before 1979, there was no doubt that Saudi Arabia was the Islamic capital of the world. It housed the two most sacred cities in Islam, Mecca and Medina, and was where the Prophet Muhammad was born. Yet, after the revolution of 1979 in Iran, which overthrew the US-backed dictator, there was confusion as to who was the Islamic capital of the world. Iran was now the largest nation to have adopted Islam as the ideological foundation for their constitution and state. This legitimized them to be the Islamic capital and threatened the Saudis' power. There was another major difference between these two groups: the Sunni and Shia split. Saudi Arabia was a mostly Sunni nation, while Iran was a mostly Shia nation. This religious division was probably the largest contributing factor to their conflict. Iran, now a possible capital for Islam, started using its new power to prompt small groups of Shias in Sunni nations to rebel. One of the places Iran started supporting Shia militias was in Saudi Arabia. This angered Saudi Arabia even more, and escalated the conflict to the point where these two have tried to attack and destroy each other in any way possible without open warfare, essentially engaging in a Cold War. Iraq, one of the many countries caught up in their conflict, is a strategic location for the Saudis and Iranians, since it separates the two nations and keeps them at arm's length from each other. Yet Iraq invaded Iran in September of 1980 to attempt to gain power amidst the confusion of the Iranian Revolution. Iran struck back a lot harder than expected, and Saudi Arabia immediately started aiding Iraq, fearing Iran would invade Iraq, getting rid of the buffer. From 1980 to 1988, Iran, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia were trapped in a war with each other. Now, the Yemeni Civil War, the Syrian Civil War, and the Iraqi Civil War that started in 2014 are all being influenced, instigated, and funded by Saudi Arabia and Iran. The only difference is that now, Saudi Arabia and Iran are starting to deploy their own troops, which are leading this conflict farther away from a Cold War and closer to a real one.